Okay, in this demonstration I have my basic PHP file. I've titled it else if with functions, and I'm going to go and do a save as in my dev folder, and we're going to call it else if with functions. I'll make this lowercase. Okay. Basically what we're going to be doing is kind of the same thing that we did last time with else if, except that I want to show you how to use some different functions this time so that you can really kind of get a better feel for all of the more complex things that you can do with logical expressions. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and paste some code that I already wrote, and we'll look at this. Okay, so I have a being equal to the integer of 10, b being equal to 15, integer 15, and c being equal to the string value of 15. So let's start off with this. So let's say we've got if the integer a, or excuse me, the variable a is less than 10, not going to be true, right, because it is 10, then echo a is less than 10. Alright, so what if we wanted to do a test where we're testing to see if maybe, let's say, a is equal to 10, alright, but also we want to see if something else is true. So let's say that we also wanted to see if this expression is true. If, let's say b is equal to c. Okay, well the way that we would do that is we would take both of these things and we would put them both inside of a larger set of parentheses, and in between them we would have to have an and. So if we wanted this to be where we're testing to see if this expression is true and this expression is true, then we're going to change this to a is equal to 10 and b is equal to c. Okay, and this is what we're going to print to screen. So we're testing this and this. So that means that both expressions have to evaluate out to be true in order for the entire logical condition to be true. So let's save it, and we're going to go up here to our Firefox browser, and we're going to go to the else if with functions, and it does evaluate to be true, right? So it says 10 is equal to 10 and 15 is equal to 15, all right? And we go back here, and what happens though if we then say and b is identical to and a is identical to, okay? So a is identical to 10 and b is identical to c. Let's go ahead and save. Okay, let's go up here, refresh, and nothing prints to screen because both of those expressions didn't evaluate to be true. So let's go back here and look at that again. Alright, so a is identical to 10, alright, so we're okay there, but b and c are not identical because one's a string and one's an integer. So this operator did not pass. Alright, but we don't want it just to show us a blank screen. We want to actually be able to go through here and come up with another statement that we're going to test so that we can have something returning to the browser. So we could just come down here and we could say else, and then we're going to finish this and come over here and we're going to say echo, and let's see what happens now. It should come up, refresh, and it says sadly this expression is false because they don't all both evaluate to be true. And so you could play around with this. Now what happens if we change this from and to or? One or the other is going to be true, so what we could do is change what we're going to print here. And you know, it doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going to have to report the results of what's happening up here. We're just doing this in a test, and we want the thing that's going to print out to the screen to actually make sense to us, so we wouldn't actually tell the screen to say something that's incorrect. So we can say this expression is true. Okay, let's save that and we go back to Firefox, refresh, and this expression is true comes up. Okay? Something else that we can fool around with is the negation tool. So let's go down here, and I'm going to actually go ahead and echo a break like this, and we'll go ahead down below, and we're going to start with a new logic model here. And what we want to do sometimes is we want to test before we actually print something to the screen. We want to test to see that it's actually been set as a variable. Because if it hasn't been set, then if you try to print it to the screen, then it will actually throw an error to the browser. So that's a really common form of error checking, especially whenever you're using forms that people fill out. Before you actually report some form data back, either to the database or back to the browser, you want to be able to make sure that all of the fields were filled out correctly or whatever. But you can test to see if something is set or not by using the function that is called isset, and we're going to show you that here. So if we say isset, and inside of it we're going to say the variable c is set, all right, if it's been declared, then echo, and let's do a backslash because I want to escape this character. We're going to say c is the value of, and then here we're just going to say c, because we want, in this case, we want this to be a character that prints to screen. All right, so c is the value of, and then here we want to actually put the value of c. All right, we could just go ahead here and say else echo backslash it, right? C has not been declared. I can't speak. I can't type very well today. Okay, so there we go, and we're going to end our curly brace. So we have this entire declaration block here. So we have if the variable c is set, then echo this, else echo that it hasn't been declared. Okay? And we're going to go ahead and save that and test it in the browser, and you can say c is the value of 15. Okay, so that means it's been set. Now, the other thing that we can do is we can go ahead and change this variable to something that is not set. So let's say username. We don't have anything called username. And also, let's go ahead and we'll use the negation tool. So we'll say if the variable username is not set, let's do echo, please go to the login page. And then we could do something different, and we could say hello username. Okay? So it's saying if username is not set, then it's going to echo, please go to the login page. Otherwise, it's going to assume that this is actually false, which means that the username is set, and it's going to say echo hello, and it would repeat the username back. If it was set, it would actually put the person's name there. So let's save that, and let's go up to the browser and test it, and it says please go to the login page. Okay? Okay, so now let's try doing something a little bit more complex. We're going to test to see if something is set, but also to see if it's a certain data type. And if we decide that we don't like the data type that it returns, then we'll be able to convert it. So let's do a test. We're going to start off with an if statement. And let's say that the first thing that we're going to test, and I'm going to kind of walk you through constructing this because it's a lot of parentheses. Let's say that we want to find out if a value is set, or if a variable is set. So the way that I like to do that is that I write the first statement, and I'll go ahead and I'll type out all of my parentheses so that I don't miss something. And I want to actually find out if the value of A is set. Actually, let's go ahead and do C. Okay, and so then the next thing that I want to do is find out, okay, well, if C is set, and, all right, so we want to type the and you can see automatically I've got a red symbol saying, hey, you're not doing the right syntax. It's because it's expecting me to wrap something in more parentheses, but we'll do that in a second. So we're going to say and then we're going to write the next expression, which is going to be isInt. And the way that that looks is is underscore int. And what this is going to ask is it an integer? And so we're going to find out if C is set and whether or not it's an integer. Okay, but we need some more parentheses. So that's the closing one, and this is the opening one. All right, so this is a full condition to test right there, and it's like two different expressions that we need to test. And then we'll go ahead and give ourselves some curly braces, and if it evaluates to be true, let's go ahead and say echo, and we'll just paste that in. So it's going to echo C as an integer, and we already know that C, if you look up here, is not an integer. Okay, so this is just going to be a little test so that we have some controls in our testing environment. So we need an else statement, or we might even need else ifs later. So let's go ahead and do our else. And what I want to do here is I'm going to paste this, I want to actually set C to be an integer, right? So we're going to test for it, and it's saying, hey, is C set and is it an integer? If it's not, then we want to actually set it to an integer. And remember, this is how you can do typecasting. So we're going to say C equals, and then to typecast something, you put in parentheses, you put int, or if it's a string, you'd put string, etc. And then you put the thing that you want to set the integer value to. Well, we're going to set it to the existing value of C, but we're going to turn that into an integer. First of all, we have to end our statement, which is like that. Now what we need to do is report something to the screen. So let's go ahead here, and we're going to echo C was converted to the integer format and is now C, which will print as a number. And one other thing that we forgot to do is we forgot to put our break. So let's go ahead, paste that, save it, and we'll go to Firefox and refresh. And here we go. If you wanted to be absolutely certain that you had the right type, where maybe we could actually even substitute this string version here in with a variable that reports back the actual type, we can go back to Dreamweaver, and let's go here. After we have reset the type, let's go back here, and we're going to do a new variable. We're going to call it type equals get type, which is a function, very much like isset or isInt, but get type is going to actually get the data type of whatever variable we pass, and we're going to use the variable of C so that we can find out exactly what type it is. And it's going to store that in this variable as a string. And then when we go here, instead of saying it's an integer, just to be absolutely certain that we know that PHP is reporting it back properly, then we'll go ahead and we'll say was converted to the type. And that way PHP is the one who's telling us what type it is. I'm not just typing it in, assuming that that's what it is. All right. And if we wanted to make absolutely certain that it was working right, we could go ahead and put like maybe strong tags around. Make sure that it's definitely refreshing properly. We'll save it, and we'll go refresh. And so this is definitely reporting back through PHP, not just what we're telling it to be. And the other thing too is that we did a typecasting here to reset this, but you could also use, if I wanted to do the same thing, I'm going to comment that out. I could also use setType function. Okay, so I just pasted this in, but setType is going to do exactly what this did, which is typecast something, and it's going to use it in a function form, and the very first parameter is going to be the variable that you want to affect. So it's going to set the type of the variable C as an integer. All right, and so you would put in quotation marks, double quotes, you would put int for integer. Go up to Firefox, we'll refresh, and it still says the same old thing. So that means it's still working.